devastating earthquake. A ground-shaking disaster has some BYU students concerned for their families in New Zealand.
Immigration debate, controversy over bill that just passed the House.
And background checks. A high school janitor's arrest is making people wonder how reliable the checks really are. I'm Natalie Tripp.
And I'm Adam Belinsky. It's Tuesday, February 22nd, and in Utah, it's 12 o'clock.
From KBYU and the BYU Department of Communications. This is the award-winning 11 News at noon.
At least 65 people are dead after a devastating earthquake brought down churches and tall buildings in one of New Zealand's largest cities. What you're about to see may be a little graphic. Some of the victims are pretty scuffed up. CNN reporter Andy Rose tells us what New Zealanders are describing as their darkest day.
Live earthquake.
Just before 1 p.m. local time Tuesday afternoon, a 6.3 magnitude earthquake rocked Christchurch, New Zealand. The main event was followed by powerful aftershocks. Buildings crumbled and roads buckled.
Absolutely frightening. It was by far and away the roughest ride we've ever had.
Survivors can barely believe it's happened again. The region is still recovering from last September's 7.1 magnitude quake, but unlike last time, Tuesday's earthquake hit in the middle of the day. The streets were crowded and office buildings full, and this time there are dozens of fatalities. The city's iconic cathedral is in ruins.
To see the dust and have people running out underneath that dust is just, there's just no words, to be quite honest. It was absolutely awful.
People are frantically digging through rubble to free anyone who might be trapped. Cranes are being used to rescue people stranded in tall buildings. In many neighborhoods, phone lines are down, power is out, and some water mains have snapped.
Obviously, it's an extremely worrying situation for the people of Canterbury and will have significantly unnerved them. And obviously, at this point, our sympathies and thoughts go to the people of Christchurch.
I'm Andy Rose reporting.
Rescue workers say the city is a center of chaos as they continue to search for survivors beneath the rubble. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has confirmed that all missionaries are safe and accounted for.
As families in New Zealand recoup from the earthquake aftermath, students here at BYU cope with their losses back home. 11 News reporter Brittany Shiflett is live with the story of one student who's been checking up on his family. Brittany, how are things going for him?
Well, he says that some of his family members were in Christchurch at the time of the earthquake, but none of them were harmed during it. Student Raymond Forrester grew up in northern New Zealand until his family moved to Christchurch. But after the recent earthquakes, Forrester says his family may want to move back.
Because the roads and stuff are getting broken up as well. And so it's just been affecting how my family get to work and stuff and the kids going to school.
Forrester says this is the second earthquake his family has experienced in Christchurch, and he's not sure how much more disaster his mom can handle.
She said there's, just like sides of buildings collapsing on buses, and she saw people all bloodied up and carrying limp bodies around and stuff.
Forrester says that phone calls from his family members in dangerous areas keeps him calm about the situation, but he still worries about aftershocks.
It's just funny talking to my family. They're saying, signs of the times, and it's just that it's making them cling tighter to the rod, I guess, and make sure that they're doing what's right.
Forrester says he didn't expect the earthquakes to happen in Christchurch, but he feels blessed that it didn't harm any of his loved ones.
It's good to hear everyone's safe. Thank you, Brittany.
There may be a different way to deal with illegal immigrants. Senator Luz Robles proposed state-issued work permits for immigrants, which would allow them to stay in Utah as long as they have a job. A new Dan Jones survey says 71% of Utahns would support the proposal, which hits the Senate floor this week.
A more conservative immigration bill passed in the Utah House and is now headed to the Senate. 11 News reporter Haley Jankowski talked with Utahns on both sides of the issue to get their reactions.
Adam, people are either booing or cheering as the Arizona-style immigration enforcement bill moves its way through the legal process. But Representative Steven Sandstrom is pretty confident about the future of his bill.
It was really exciting. It was like a big weight off your shoulders, you know, type.
After a heated 2-hour debate, Representative Sandstrom's bill passed with an overwhelming majority of 58 to 15. The bill calls for the state to tackle illegal immigration instead of the federal government.
You know, the biggest thing is, number one, to identify the criminal element in our state and get them out of our state, and also to act as a deterrent so we don't have more and more and more people coming here illegally.
But some Utahns disagree with Sandstrom.
I want to know why. What does Utah have to do with it? I don't feel that it's a state decision. It's a federal decision that we all need to be regulated all across the board together.
But others, like Angela Santos, say someone has to step up and face the issue.
If the federal government isn't doing anything about it, I understand why the states want to take action and do something about it.
Despite potential roadblocks in the Senate, Representative Sandstrom says he's not too worried.
Yeah, I think it will ultimately pass the Senate. Might be a lot of hard work, might be some bloodletting, if you will, but it will pass, yeah.
If it passes the Senate, Governor Herbert has the final say.
At the end of the day, he'll have overwhelming pressure from the people of Utah to sign the bill.
Sandstrom says he expects the Senate to vote on the bill by the end of this week. If it passes the Senate and the governor signs it, the bill will go into effect July 1st.
When 11 News at noon returns, faulty system, why schools can't always rely on background checks.
And take a hike, why UTA is driving up the price of bus passes and what that means for BYU students. Stay with us. A collapsing tunnel deep underneath I-15 landed a drilling contractor with the full cost of highway repairs. The Utah Department of Transportation won't release the name of the contractor or how much it will cost to fix the roads, but they say they suspended the project permit until they have a safer drilling plan for the natural gas pipeline. Starting this fall, BYU students will have to pay more to ride the bus. UTA and BYU work together to meet a reasonable price for student bus passes. Right now, students pay a discounted rate of $100 for their pass, but in a matter of months, that rate will no longer be available. That's because less students ride the bus, meaning BYU no longer meets UTA's financial requirements.
It's just ridiculous that they're charging us more money. We already are kind of broke. I mean, we're all college students.
To fight rising prices, some students say they're moving closer to campus, while others say they already bought a car.
2 people are dead and 1 is in the hospital after a domestic dispute in Washington City. Their neighbors called 911 after they heard gunshots next door, and when the police got there, they heard another gunshot. Inside the house, they found a woman and her son dead. The father shot himself in the head, but he survived. Doctors say he's in critical but stable condition. A Salt Lake City man is recovering after his 12-year-old son stabbed him in the back. The man tried to break up a fight between 2 of his sons who were arguing over food. That's when one of the sons pulled out a knife and stabbed his dad. The 12-year-old ran from the house, but police found him later. Investigators say the boy could face criminal charges. Utah schools use background checks when hiring new employees, but as 11 News reporter Kristen Firmage shows us, schools like Provo High can't always rely on background checks.
23-year-old Darren Heyman worked as a janitor at Provo High School for 2 years. No one suspected any problems until police arrested him for leaving a video camera in a girl's locker room.
All Provo School District employees have to go through a police background check. Now, this is something that Heyman went through, but he came out clean.
The background check goes through the FBI, where they search for any arrests or violations of the law. The school district pays for this so that they can know the criminal history of any potential employees.
You hire honest people that you have faith in. We have over 3,000 employees. We do background checks, we do interviews, we try to do the best that we can. Unfortunately, once in a while, you come across something like this.
Police still haven't found a criminal history for Heyman, so they say it could be his first offense.
We collected from him the cell phone and a laptop that he had in the school. We are going to have a forensic specialist go through both and then try to find to see if we have any other evidence.
Kristen Firmage, 11 News, Provo.
Hudnall says there's not much more the school district can do when it comes to protecting students, but they don't want anything like this to happen again.
Protesters in Wisconsin continue to riot. Flames rise high in Missouri and ice rivers sweep the streets in Iowa. Here's your look at news from across the nation. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker says he won't negotiate over his plan to cut back on union rights. Public employees continue to protest outside the state capitol. Democrats and labor unions say they'd compromise with an increase in benefit costs, but Walker says that's a no-go. State Democrats left the state on Thursday and say they won't come back until Walker is willing to compromise. Toxic smoke is still rising from what's left of a plastics factory in Langridge, Missouri. A fire blazed through 500,000 pounds of plastic inside the factory for 10 hours. Firefighters got to the flames by ripping holes in the building with heavy construction equipment. Once inside, they say the flames were almost impossible to control because the plastic was oil-based. A flooding river is turning northern Iowa into an icy mess. Ice jams redirected the Des Moines River, filling homes with waist-high waters. A few of these homes flooded only months ago, and some people say they're ready to move out. The flooding hasn't caused any injuries, but emergency officials are warning people downstream things could get dangerous when the river breaks through the ice. And that's your look at news from across the nation. Back to you.
Thanks, Adam. When 11 News at noon returns, basketball bliss. Over the weekend, Jimmer and company traveled to TCU to take on the Horned Frogs. Motorized beds, a Florida man is changing the way the world sees wheelchairs.
And it feels chillier than what the thermometer is reading. I'll help you plan for the rest of the week on 11 News weather when we return.
Well, when I walked to campus this morning, it was kind of that weird state where I worked up a sweat, but still my ears were freezing. What's going on with the weather?
I know, the weather needs to make up its mind, right? We can take a look outside of the mountains. They're just covered in snow. In Snow Basin and in Deer Valley, they got about an inch last night. And in Solitude, they've gotten 44 inches in the past 72 hours. And that's just crazy. All of the snow and ski resorts have just been covered in snow over the past few days. Currently in Provo right now, it's 38 degrees, but it feels more like 31 degrees. And that's because of those 10-mile-per-hour winds. And tonight it's going to get a little bit chillier with the low of 25. And that's because there's a storm moving in with a 20% chance of snow tonight. And that storm is coming in from the north and the south, coming in from the south, you can see, and from the north, dropping snow right here in northern and central Utah. And across the state, the temperatures are going to drop, but they're not quite cold enough yet for snow today, but they will be by the middle and end of the week. Right now, for the high in Logan, it's going to be 38. 43 in Salt Lake City, and down in St. George, 54. And in southern Utah, it's going to be a little bit warmer towards the beginning of the week, and then it's just going to be getting chillier towards the end of the week. And on Saturday, we see a 40% chance of snow and some pretty intense thunderstorms. So you're going to want to plan for that. And here in the Wasatch Valley, it's a little bit of a different story. We're going to be getting some colder, stormy type weather on Thursday and Saturday. A 50% chance of snow on Thursday and a 60% chance of snow on Friday. So it's just going to be getting colder and then warming up a little bit on Saturday. And so you definitely want to plan for those snowstorms coming in on Thursday and Friday.
So definitely enjoy the sun while it's here, but how much snow are we talking about for these kids to come?
I don't think it's going to be a ton of inches. In the mountains, it might be a little bit of a different story. Like I said, the mountains have been getting a lot of snow lately, but probably not more than 2 or 3 inches for Thursday and Friday.
So just to be annoying and cold.
Yeah, it's still enough to make the road slick, so it's still an issue. Thanks, Brittany. So BYU, great with sports right now. TCU, they had a great game against TCU, the Cougar basketball team, and some other good stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot going around all over this weekend. Lakia, tell us what's up in sports.
That's right, guys. Next on sports, as BYU basketball heads into the home stretch, Jimmer and company's eyes are on the prize. The Horned Frogs try to upstage the Cougars in front of their hometown crowd, but it wouldn't be easy. And the Stars were out in Los Angeles. New blood injects some life into this year's NBA All-Star Game. Sports is next. Stay tuned. A sold-out crowd made their way to Daniel Meyer Coliseum to watch the force that is Jimmer Mania as it swept into town. It's the first sellout crowd they've seen since November 2004. Cougars up by 5, and Jimmer Fredette driving down the middle for the layup. TCU would try their best to keep up. Here's J.R. Cadet with the dunk face to Brandon Davies. End of the first, Cougs up by 12. Steven Rogers shoots and misses the 3, but great rebounding gives him another chance, and he makes it. Second half, Jimmer Fredette, of course, with a 3. He had a game-high 23 points and was 3 of 9 from behind the arc. The Cougars win an easy one. Final score, 79-56. They face Colorado State tomorrow at home. But that's not all. If you thought the January matchup between the Aztecs and the Cougars was huge, this Saturday's contest between the two could have even bigger implications. The latest AP poll has BYU and SDSU holding steady at 6 and 7. A win on Saturday in front of a national network TV audience could vault Jimmer and the boys into the top 5 and cement a number 2 seeding in the NCAA tournament. The highest seed they've had so far was number 3 back in 1980. While the men pretty much had their way with TCU, the women had a tougher time Saturday against the Horned Frogs. The Cougars were looking to distance themselves from TCU in the conference standings, and they did just that. Conference Player of the Week Kim Parker came off the bench with 14 points and added some much-needed depth to put them 2 games ahead of TCU with a 70-60 final score. After beating UC Santa Barbara 3-1 Friday night thanks to freshman phenom Taylor Sanders' 17 kills, the number 2 ranked men's volleyball team realized they needed a whole lot more from their star Saturday. Sanders recorded 10 kills but only had a .120% hitting average against the Gauchos. UCSB swept BYU in straight sets, giving the Cougars their 4th loss of the season. They returned to the Smith Fieldhouse Thursday to face UC San Diego. All-Star Weekend made its way to LA, and with Blake Griffin jumping over cars and Justin Bieber schooling peeps on the court, it was almost easy to forget the main event. Kobe Bryant in front of the home crowd, his 13th All-Star game, and LeBron James getting others in the pregame rosin toss. Kobe showing the youngins what's really good, and Blake Griffin admires from the sidelines. He would get to school the vets, though, with this. The kid is amazing. I can't believe him. LeBron wouldn't be outshined, though. Dude is like a freight train. But LeBron, this time with a layup, he scored 29 points and had the 2nd ever triple-double in All-Star history. Kobe and the West, though, would have all the fun. He led them to a 148-143 win and was named All-Star MVP. And finally, the melodrama is over. After weeks of talks and teams backing off and then going for and only to back off again, Carmelo Anthony got his wish and is the newest New York Knick. The Knicks will send 4 players and a 2014 draft pick to the Denver Nuggets. Along with Anthony, the Knicks will get Chauncey Billups and 3 other players. Anthony is expected to sign a 3-year deal worth $65 million. I think after this acquisition, him with Stoudemire and now Chauncey, I might have to jump back on the Knick bandwagon.
Well, you know what? If I made as much as him, I'd be happy too.
Oh, of course. And he gets to return home, so that's always
great.
Nice.
Thanks, Lakia. Thanks. Still to come on 11 News at noon, Space Age Wheelchair, how man is moving forward while lying down. We'll be right back.
One Florida man was not happy just sitting in a wheelchair, so after a car accident paralyzed him years ago, he got creative. Check this out. Brian Davids designed this one-of-a-kind motor bed from scratch. He says using regular wheelchairs was too uncomfortable, and so that's why he got creative. His invention can cruise up to 6 miles per hour and roll along for 18 miles before running out of juice. Davids hopes to team up with a nonprofit group to make more motorized beds for injured military veterans.
That is really cool.
Yeah, I wonder if he lets other people take turns.
I could use that to get to and from campus every day, that's for sure.
I was just thinking that. You could race with other people.
That's your 11 News at noon for February 22nd.
You can join us anytime on our website, 11news.byu.edu.
Thanks for watching and have a great afternoon.